good night, guys. So here we are, doing something I didn't do in a while, doing some tier listing. I wanted to do a art media tier list because I don't see people doing it very often. I see people doing tier lists with movies, game characters, games, books, and even about how accurate clothing are in historical TV shows. I've seen tier lists of everything. I've seen tier lists of food, a tier list of bread. So why not make a tier list of art materials? I guess it's valid. So we got here some very common art materials so we can rate them in this tier list. The choice of art materials is very personal. We try everything out and see what works for us and what doesn't work, what goes with our style. My thoughts on these media, it doesn't mean they're bad, it just means they are not the best for me. I don't know if you are familiar with all the art materials we got here, but I'll try to explain as I go. First of all, pencils. We got pencils. I don't think you can even draw without pencils, so... I mean, you can go straight up with a pen, but it's not the same thing. You have to start somewhere, and you start drawing with a pencil. So I don't think you can even start your artistic journey by ignoring that pencils exist. So pencil and eraser. Where's the eraser? Here. So I'm putting pencil and eraser on the top of a tier list because they are essentials. I don't think any of us could draw if we hadn't those. Also, by the way, just a friendly reminder, this is a bilingual channel, so I'll be speaking in both English and Portuguese. This one, I don't know the name in English. Let me type it. Let me get a translation here. Oh my god, why German? I never pick German. This thing here, the Google Translator tells me the name is Smoke. I hardly doubt it. In Portuguese, the name is Esfuminho. I don't know the name in English. It's used for blending. I recommend you to use this if you're gonna draw realistically, specifically, but you can live without it. I've been drawing by using my finger to blur the edges, to smudge. Oh, is this a smudger? I don't know if that's such a name for this thing. So I've been using my finger and it works. I mean, my art teacher would scold me when I did that, but honestly, it kind of works the same. And if you get a piece of newspaper and fold it, you can get the same effect. Now let's move on. Technical pen. I must say, as a line art supremacist, I can't live without those. I have my package right here by my side and I love them. Colored pencil. And I know we all use colored pencils when we are kids and we have lots of fun, but honestly, it's not just because I'm sort of a goth artist and I work with way less saturated colors, because using colored pencil is hard work. If you paint wrong, it gets like weird marks on it. It's very easy to get your drawing to look ugly, and if you want your drawing to look smooth and pretty and the colors to blend perfectly, it takes a lot of work. It's not my favorite because it just takes a lot of effort, and I feel like I could save up time if I was using something else. These are like regular markers, also you use as a kid. These are a little bit underappreciated. So most people don't use these because if you they will likely bleed to the other side of the paper, you get marks. They don't blend well. They are kind of limited. But actually I think I'm gonna move it down with the colored pencil. I just gave it a better thought and it's not as good as I thought it could be. Because actually you can get those scrub it on porcelain and then you come with a wet brush and you pick up these colors and you paint on paper, you get a nice effect. You can paint on paper with these markers. When I think of it, it's not the best media because you can get a better effect with watercolors or any other paint. So yeah, these markers aren't really good. You can get to a good result with them if you're creative, but it definitely wouldn't be my first choice. Limpa tipo, I also don't know the name in English. I have a problem with knowing the names of these medias in English. I know their names in Portuguese. It feels like clay, and it's used to clean up graffiti. If you feel like your drawing is too dark, that's what I'm trying to say. If you feel like your drawing is too dark and you just use this to get it a little bit lighter, you don't simply erase and start over. You can make it look a little lighter. So it saves a lot of time. It's actually better than a regular eraser. The uses are different, but I feel like this is actually better. Sketchbook. I'm gonna say sketchbook is also S because you just can't live without one. I bring a sketchbook with me everywhere. I have lots of sketchbooks. I can show you. I have this one just on my desk. This one, 3, 4 on my desk, one more in my bag, and I'm positive there is 2 more in that drawer there. And it's very good to bring it with you wherever you go. So if you have an idea, all of a sudden you can work on it no matter where you are, at least so you don't lose your idea, so you can sketch it up and work better on it later. Ink, black ink or China ink. Well, as I stated before, I'm a line art supremacist, so this is definitely S tier for me. And you may think that because I love this, I'm gonna put the feather pen on S tier, but I won't. Feather pens can spill, feather pens can stain. You have to clean it properly. You gotta get a really good one. Brushes, on the other hand, they are not only very useful, you can use brushes for everything. You can use brushes for inking. I use brushes for inking, very thin brushes to do line art. And you can use it for coloring. You can use brushes for a lot of stuff. For just adding water. I use brushes to tie my hair. Really, I use brushes to tie my hair. There is a huge brush here. I do it a lot. I just pull my hair up and I tie my hair with a brush. Very useful. Copic markers. I'm gonna put them on D. I'm not a big fan of Copics. I'm sorry. It's not about the brand. It's not about Copic itself. I'm not a fan of markers at all. These alcohol markers, they have such a strong smell. I feel like if I were to work with these materials, I'd have to be in an open place. And the place I work in is actually a small, closed place, so I wouldn't work with that. I know Copics are very popular, but personally, I just don't like them. Please don't hate me. White pen. White pen is very useful, but you can live without it. The white pen is actually underappreciated. We could use it more. You can just use regular paint and a really thin brush to do the same thing. Gouache. Again, I don't know the name of this thing in English. I know I used to paint it at school when I was a kid. And I know some artists do really good artworks with this, but I really honestly don't know how they do it. I tried. I don't like it. Listen, if you know how to paint good art with these, you're doing magic. I don't know if you ever used kohl pencil. I think it's underappreciated. I like the kohl pencil. It's very specific. I don't think you're gonna use these much unless you actually paint. They are really good for sketching up something you're gonna paint upon. It's very easy to erase them. You just scrub your hand on it and it starts coming out. And along with the kohl stick, we got the canvas. Not that I think it's bad, I just think it's not very practical. And this is not my type of art. I prefer drawing on paper, on different kinds of paper, on special paper, on watercolor paper and stuff like that. I used canvases before. You have to put them on a vertical support. It's not very comfortable to paint in a vertical surface. We got electric eraser. Have you guys ever heard of electric eraser? It exists. It is something and I like it. It's very nice. The thing is, I'm gonna put it here because besides liking it, it's very specific. It's very, very specific. If you never heard of this, I'm gonna tell you how it works. You place a very thin eraser on the tip of it, and then you press a button and it turns very fast. And when you touch the paper, it erases a very thin part of a drawing. So let me see if I find here a drawing that I did using this. It's also very good for people that do realism and you need to make a really thin white line. Oh, here, found it. This is the drawing I made using a electric eraser. I don't really see any other use for it besides doing this white precise details. As you can see here. Can you see here? These little things, these little pieces of fur. This is what I did with the electric eraser. You can see. It looks really good. And there's a lot more, like every little fur standing out here was made with this kind of eraser. I just went bzz, bzz, bzz. So if you don't do realism, honestly, I don't think you have use for this. Crayons. This is, I guess, regular crayons. This is not the dry ones. This is the oily ones. Again, I don't know the names in English besides calling it crayons. So I guess it's just regular crayons, but they are professional. I'm putting it down here. I'm putting both of them here, honestly. I don't like crayons at all. Both the regular crayons and dry pastels, I hate them. They are not precise at all. I'm all about precision. I'm all about detailing. I'm all about making those thin, delicate lines. And I can't really do that with this big, chunky things. Now we got the paints. We got a lot of paints here. Oils. I'm so sorry, oil paint. I know you must be good for something. If oils weren't good, all the great painters wouldn't use it. But I have a very specific reason to put oil paint here. I'm allergic to it. I just can't paint with this unless I want to go to the hospital. Acrylics. I like acrylics a lot. I used acrylics for a long while since I can't use oil. I've been using acrylics for a while, especially when I need to paint like on bigger surfaces. It's good for like spreading out and painting larger. Watercolors. I'm putting watercolors here because I just love watercolors. It's my favorite media. I love watercolors so much. Ecolini. I don't know how to say this in English, but this is a brand of liquid watercolor. I'm putting this up here because it's really good, but it's easy to make a mess with it. Especially when you're not very delicate. I'm not very delicate, so when I open it, sometimes I get my hand dirty with paint. And for the last one, I didn't think this was gonna be the last one, but it ended up being. This is a light table. If you don't know what a light table is, it is something you put your drawing on and then you turn on a light under it, and then you can put another sheet on the top of it, a sheet of paper on the top of it, and you can transfer your drawing to the other paper. So if your first paper is a little damaged, you can transfer it to another paper and the paper looks clean again. And I like it a lot. I had one, I used it. It is very good if you work on traditional. It's also useful for animators, I guess. Honestly, nowadays we have access to digital art, so animating is way easier on a computer, because you have softwares to make your life easier. But if you want to animate on a more traditional way, you have to get one of those. So this is my art media tier list. I see the most colorful things are on the bottom. Not because I'm a monochromatic person at all, and most of the things on the top, most of the things I like are black and white, yes. That's it. If I didn't offend you, I'll get to you shortly, don't worry. If I already offended you, have a good day. We're done.